The Sega Saturn is one of my favorite consoles of all time, and if you're a subscriber on the channel, you know that I love making videos about the Sega Saturn. Now, if you're not a subscriber to the channel, let's go ahead and fix that by hitting that subscribe button down below. And if you're a subscriber to the channel, you also know that I enjoy making list videos where I list games in a numerical order or sometimes just randomly letting you guys know what some of the best games are. But I've never done a definitive top 10 list for a console. And as the channel continues to grow, we're over 40,000 subscribers now, I think it's time to start looking at videos like this. I think it's time for my channel to start doing videos like this so you guys can know what the best possible games on a platform are. And I've decided to kick things off with, of course, the Sega Saturn. Now, I do want to preface one thing before we get into this video. I have only chosen North American titles for this video. Yes, the Sega Saturn was widely successful in Japan, tons of exclusive games, but I thought it would be better for me to just focus on North American games and then in the future revisit with PAL games and of course Japanese games. So this video is just going to be the top 10 North American games. Just want to let you guys know that so I don't hear, "Where's Radiant Silvergun?" Like, I know it's a thing, people, trust me. Anyways, without any further ado, let's get into the definitive list of the top 10 Sega Saturn games of all time.
Sega! Number 10, Die Hard Arcade. Die Hard Arcade was known as Dynamite Decca in Japan and was a brand new IP for Sega on the Sega Saturn. With the US release of the game, Fox Interactive positioned the game with the Die Hard license, putting Bruce Willis in the game as John McClane, presumably to make it more noticeable with North American audiences. And I would say that it worked for the most part. Die Hard Arcade was a fast and fun beat-em-up game that felt like an evolution of the genre, with a variety of weapons, environments, and fighting moves at your disposal. The game even introduced QuickTime events, having you press a certain button at a certain time which would impact your next battle. Saving the President's Daughter has never been so much fun, and Die Hard Arcade was a shining example of a fantastic first-party exclusive on the Sega Saturn. Number 9, Galactic Attack. The Sega Saturn had a ton of fantastic shoot-em-ups in Japan, but for whatever reason not many of them saw the light of day in North America, which is a shame. One game that did was a game called Ray Force by Data East in Japan, which was published in North America by Acclaim and renamed Galactic Attack. Galactic Attack is a vertical shooter that holds up to this very day when talking about the great shmups in my opinion, with a large color palette, tons of weapon upgrades, large boss battles, tons of sprite on screen, and most importantly, smooth and fluid frame rate. The game never really dips in terms of frame rate either, even when the screen is full of enemies and projectile attacks, making it the best shmup on the Saturn that was released in North America in my opinion. Number 8, A Stall. While most of the focus on 32-bit systems was on exploring 3D styles of gameplay and new open worlds, A Stall was more of a throwback to the 16-bit gaming that preceded the Saturn. The result of this was a game that still looks amazing today, A Stall. A Stall uses hand-drawn graphics and a bright and varied color palette that still makes the game a looker today, with fluid animations and interesting set pieces. Although the game was a bit short, it is arguably one of the best platformers from the 32-bit generation, and it even included a two-player mode in which you would control a bird to help A Stall in the adventure, which was a bit of a precursor to the second-player aspect of games like Super Mario Galaxy. Number 7, Daytona USA Championship Circuit Edition. Daytona USA was an arcade powerhouse, and when the Saturn was released with Daytona USA, fans were excited to see what Sega brought to the table in terms of the home port of the game. Unfortunately, the game was severely rushed, and while still fun, was lacking in the quality department in terms of graphics and especially frame rate. Much like the situation with Virtua Fighter and Virtua Fighter Remix, Sega righted this wrong with Daytona USA Championship Circuit Edition. Boasting 2 new tracks, a 2-player mode, new cars, and most importantly, a solid 30 frames rate per second. Pop-up was drastically reduced, the game used much crisper colors, and even supported the 3D analog pad that was used in Knights. The remix music was a bit of a personal disappointment because I love the original soundtrack, but the high quality of everything else makes this a fantastic Saturn racer. Number 6. Street Fighter Alpha 2. One area the Sega Saturn excelled in over the PlayStation was in the realm of 2D games, which is no surprise since the Saturn was originally designed with 2D graphics in mind. 2D fighters saw a huge benefit in this aspect, with the Saturn version of 2D fighters demolishing the PS1 in terms of visuals, gameplay, and quality. The best example of this in North America was Street Fighter Alpha 2. The Saturn version of Street Fighter Alpha 2 was extremely close to the arcade port and featured all of the characters from the game, including Evil Ryu. What's more, the Saturn version included an exclusive survival mode and art gallery as well. The gameplay was fast, the combos were fluid, and the graphics were really pushing the stock Saturn hardware, making it arguably the best 2D North American fighter on the system. Number 5. Shining Force 3. While Sega was predominantly known for a variety of arcade games and arcade ports, games like the Shining series and Phantasy Star tapped into heavy JRPG roots. Shining Force 3 was one of the last North American titles released for the Sega Saturn, and was definitely one of the finest as well. A strategy RPG, Shining Force 3 featured a rich story and timeless gameplay, using a grid system to move your troops to do battle in, similar to what Fire Emblem does. Animations were gorgeous, the overworlds were beautiful, towns were bustling with NPCs and shops, and Shining Force 3 was a complete masterpiece. Unfortunately for North American owners, this was intended to be a 3-part game, and we only received the first game in the United States, meaning the true ending of the game has never hit North American soil. Number 4. Guardian Heroes. Treasure is probably the most underrated company of all time, and a game that went pretty unnoticed until long after the Saturn had ended was a title called Guardian Heroes. On the surface, Guardian Heroes looks like a standard but highly stylized 2D beat-em-up, but the game featured a ton of RPG elements to make it pretty unique. Players would gain experience points that they could use to assign to 6 different characteristics for their fighter, which gave the game some real depth. On top of that, there were branching paths, multiple endings, and even a karma system that is dependent on whether or not you kill civilians. When you combine the varied gameplay with a good variety of characters to choose from, and add some of the best 2D visuals and audios on the Sega Saturn, Guardian Heroes ends up a true masterpiece that has stood the test of time. Number 3. Knights. One of the reasons the Sega Saturn failed in terms of gaining a foothold in North America is often thought to be the lack of a new exclusive Sonic game, Sonic 3D Blast withstanding. That doesn't mean Sonic Team wasn't busy working on the Sega Saturn though, as they produced a brand new IP called Knights into Dreams instead. Knights came bundled with a controller that added a 3D analog stick to the Sega Saturn, and the game benefited greatly from having it. Knights was a game that took place in a 3D world but relied on a 2D plane, where you control knights as they fly around collecting a certain number of orbs in a certain set of time. Levels featured some of the best graphics on the Sega Saturn, with rich landscapes, big boss battles, and tons of variety within the levels. Knights was a very unique game that attempted to go toe-to-toe with mascots like Crash Bandicoot and Mario, who had recently returned in Super Mario 64, but for whatever reason never managed to resonate with audiences quite as much as those two. Strangely, I think a modified Knights engine could have made a fantastic Sonic game on the Sega Saturn. As it stands though, Knights was a fantastic game in its own right. Number 2. Virtua Fighter 2. Sega was one of the most dominant companies in the early to mid 90s, with the Sega Genesis taking off in North America and having a very strong hold on North American arcades with their variety of games. One of the biggest franchises for Sega during that time was Virtua Fighter, and Virtua Fighter 2 was an absolutely stellar fighter on the Sega Saturn. A 3D fighter, Virtua Fighter 2 on the surface seems like a pretty simple game, but the complexity lies within the sheer amount of moves that each character has at their disposal. Every character feels pretty unique and fresh as well, making it worthwhile to play through the game with all of them. Texture mapping on the characters looks amazing, and the game managed to run at 60 frames per second, which was the same as the arcade version. With gorgeous visuals and fast and fluid animation, Virtua Fighter 2 still stands the test of time as an amazing 3D fighter that helped pave the way for the future of the genre. Number 1. Panzer Dragoon Saga. Panzer Dragoon Saga was the third game in the Panzer Dragoon series on the Sega Saturn. The first two games were pretty similar, an on-rail shooter where you are on the back of a large dragon, almost like a Star Fox style of game. These were fantastic games in their own right, but Panzer Dragoon Saga takes the core gameplay of these titles and adds a ton of new things, including turning it into a JRPG. The real-time battles on the back of a dragon are still there, but Saga adds turn-based elements into the gameplay as well, and even on-foot segments where the player controls the human character Edge on foot. Edge visits towns, interacts with NPCs, and all the usual JRPG elements. Saga has some of the best visuals seen on the Sega Saturn, with such a large variety of area types and beasts to slay that it's amazing to see running on a 32-bit machine. The game spans across several discs and is an absolute epic adventure that hasn't ever really been replicated by any other game. It may be the most expensive Saturn game, often selling for over $700 complete at the time of this video, but considering it's the finest game on the system, it is a small price to pay for gaming greatness.
Alright, and those are the top 10 Sega Saturn games of all time. I think I did a pretty good job with this list. I'm feeling very confident in it. Of course, if you disagree with anything, let me know in the comments section down below. Make sure you hit that like button if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more top 10 videos in the future, and I will definitely consider doing them. I had fun making this video. It was fun reminiscing about all these games, trying to figure out, where I would put them in the top 10. So it was a good time making this video. As always, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you like this shirt I'm wearing, this is available in the RGT 85 shirt shop. I hardly ever plug this, so I don't know quite what to say, but that's in the description box. Also, if you really like my face, make sure you check out my Patreon. That is also in the description box down below. And I will catch you guys next time. Later.
RGT 85, RGT 85. RGT 85.